This video is made possible by Practical Defense Systems, the best online security training at the lowest prices. You can start your security career today online at pdsclasses.com. Check them out. Hi, I'm Joel Persinger from Practical Defense Systems. This is going to be part 2 of a video that I posted on contact and cover and the concept of how to approach dangerous people. It does apply to law enforcement and security, but here's the point I want to make before I start. This also applies to you if you are an armed citizen or an unarmed citizen for that matter. I can't tell you how many times I've taught this class or a class on this subject and had someone say to me, well, that doesn't really apply to me because I'm not a security guard, I'm not a police officer. Yes, it does apply to you. When we approach dangerous people or we're approached by dangerous people, understanding how to work as a team in that environment is what will keep us safe and keep us alive, or at least hedge our bets so that we might be able to do so. If we all converge on it at once, we've seen that happen, and it goes down the toilet rather quickly. So whether you're in security, law enforcement, or you're an armed citizen, or you're just somebody who's got a loved one you walk around with, and you're concerned about how to approach a situation, if you are suddenly confronted with someone who's belligerent or difficult or potentially violent, the video I posted before, which was part 1, and this video will be very helpful to you. So with that understanding, let me finish up with part 2 of the class that I taught on contact and cover. Cover officer, let the contact officer be the what? The contact officer, which means shut up and let them do the contacting. Okay, don't try to interject. How many, now look. I'm just show of hands here because I'm going to raise mine. Who all here will confess that sometimes when they're listening to people, they're just listening for an opportunity to say what they want to say? Yeah, that's all of us, right? And if you didn't raise your hand, you're self-deceived, okay? So, look, at some point when we're the cover officer, we get to let the contact officer do their job. We'll sometimes feel like, okay, well, but he didn't ask this question, or, well, but she should have, well, I wouldn't have said that way. I would have said that, it would work better if we said, look, just keep that to yourself. You guys can talk about that later. A different way, maybe, or a better way that you think might be better. Maybe it isn't. The contact officer is a contact officer. If you're the cover officer, you're not. Let the contact officer do the contacting. Don't be afraid to help your partner maintain proper distance and awareness. It's okay to do that. Just keep them informed. Stay alert. Your partner's life may depend upon it, yours too for that matter. And what's this last part? Listen to the in all things and do what he says. Amen? Listen to the Spirit in all things. You have cover no one can see. And when we forget to listen to the ultimate cover, who is doing what? Communicating, saying, this is scary, this is dangerous, back up, get more space, don't go over there, right? And yet we blunder on forward anyway. That's where we get hurt. Listen to the Spirit all the time. If you're the contact officer, do your job and trust that your partner has your back. Does that make sense? Do your job. Be the contact officer. Let the cover officer take care of being the cover officer. You do your job and trust that your partner has your back and trust that the Lord has your back. Okay? Stay humble. Listen to your partner's warnings. Listen to your partner's alerts. Stay humble. Listen to the Spirit. Yes? Everybody goes like this? Nodding heads? Okay, listen to the Spirit and do what he tells you. Go ahead, man. Now, do we have contact and cover here? What's wrong with this picture? Give me a list. Somebody tell me one thing that's wrong with this picture. What's wrong with this picture, sir? Hands in the pockets. Hands in the pockets, hands behind the vest. Stance. Okay, now, have you ever heard the old saying, don't get caught flat-footed? Looks a little flat-footed, doesn't it? If this woman, who's not very big, or this person walked over and clocked him on the chin, where would he go? Right on his butt. And would he be able to react to it? No, because his hands are stuffed underneath his vest. Probably cold out. And this officer, would this officer see it coming? No, because there's no cover, is there?
You're right. They haven't established anything except foolishness. They've established that. They've established foolishness and laziness and not following their training. Right, yeah, right. They're ignoring him. Whoop! I just went, wow, that was amazing. That's like an act of God. I thought I was deaf before. Now I know I'm deaf. That's an absolutely excellent point. Nobody's watching this person. Do we know what's under the jacket? Could there be a razor under there, or a blade under there, or a gun under there? Yeah. How long would it take if this person had a gun to shoot this officer in the head and then shoot this one? Less time than it would take for this officer to inhale or exhale or blink, and less time than it would take for this officer to adjust to what just happened, determine what happened, and respond to it. Here's another example. Before we start the video, I'm going to want you to watch this video. I want you to watch what she's doing. I want you to watch the cover officer move over here, and I want you to watch the contact officer and the suspect. It's going to play 2 or 3 times. I'm going to let it play probably 3 times for you so that you can see the various different pieces of the puzzle, and then I'm going to ask you to tell me what went wrong. Go ahead. Okay, it's going to go again. Now, he did shoot the contact officer in the chest. Everybody seen it enough times? Okay, go ahead and stop it. What went wrong in that video? Yes, sir. At what point did the suspect put his hands in his pockets?
The minute they started moving towards the rear of the vehicle, he had his hands in his pocket, no one said anything.
Even before he turned around?
He actually had them in there for quite some time.
Nobody commanded him to take his hands out of his pockets. He was still standing there with his hands in the pockets while the contact officer was talking to him. Anything else? Yeah, there's lots of time to do that. Let's deal with the subject first, and then we'll go search the car afterwards. Right now, let's have a conversation with him. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Like I said, there's lots of time to look at the car and the people that are in it. Right now, you got a guy who's out of the car. If they start popping out of the car like daisies, then you got to deal with them. But if you can keep them in the car, leave them in the car for a minute or two. Let's deal with the guy that's outside the car. Then we'll go start fussing around inside the car. Cops get killed a lot because, not a lot, but occasionally an officer gets killed or shot because they're not attentive to the person who's outside the car, and they don't have a good contact or good cover of people that are in the car in case they start popping out like daisies. It happens. So, let's one thing at a time, one step at a time. That's why God gave us 2 feet. So you saw a few things there that were really, really important, and I think you picked out the majority of them. The other one that I would say is, how often do you suppose this officer practiced on the range drawing her weapon and firing? However often the department made her do it. We like to think that cops are gun people, but they're not. Some are. Most aren't. Most are like most, just because you have a computer at work doesn't mean you're a computer tech. Or that you love computers or you're fascinated by them. You use it for a tool for work. I have police officers on the range all the time, okay? I can tell you that in some cases, not all, where they're talking about the officers that only shoot when they're required to shoot, if they're shooting at me and I'm standing still, I'm perfectly safe. If I move, I might walk into one of their errant misses, okay? If you have a defensive tool, whether it's a firearm or a stun or pepper spray, should you at minimum practice getting the stupid thing out in a hurry under stress? Yeah, because that's when you're going to have to get it out under a hurry, or in a hurry, is under stress. So should you figure out how best to get that out, where it should be positioned on your belt, how you're going to clear the garment out of the way to get it out? Should you be doing that?
Whether like I said, it could be OC, it could be stun, it could be a gun. It depends on what you carry. You want to practice it safely, but you should practice drawing that tool. Can you tell that I've practiced drawing this a few times? Yes. I'm a Filipino martial artist. What do they fight with? Knives, sticks, right? Empty hand too. Why do you think I carry a knife? Why do you think I can draw it so fast? Because I practice with it all the time. Do I intend to hurt anybody? No. But like I said, I know they're out to get me. No, I'm kidding. But it is one of my defensive tools, isn't it? All right, let's go to the next slide. These two officers, Kimberly Tannehill and Timothy Roop, were killed at Grape Street Park. I'll just read you a little blurb about them because they were killed at a point where the department really wasn't using contact and cover very much. And when you hear how it happened, which is kind of brief, you'll understand why they were killed. And it gets back to not dealing with things one thing at a time. So here's a little memorial thing that's on the web for Officer Tannehill. Patrolman Kimberly Tannehill and Patrolman Timothy Roop, I think it's Roop, or it might be Rope, but I'll say Roop, he's not around to criticize me, were shot and killed by an armed suspect at Grape Street Park. The officers had located a vehicle in the park that contained 2 underage females and 2 males, while Patrolman Roop was writing a citation to 1 male for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Patrolman Tannehill was questioning the other male. Patrolman Roop arrived first. He found some people who were of age. One young man, Latino young man in the park, was of age, providing alcohol to some underage girls. Tannehill rolled out as cover, which was the policy, and when she got there, provided no cover at all. She just rolled out. They just rolled out because they have an extra officer now, and they got 2 instead of 1. But again, they weren't trained to do differently. It was unknown to Patrolman Tannehill that the male she was questioning had a handgun concealed on his person. This male suddenly produced his handgun when Patrolman Tannehill was beginning to search him. She had just started the pat-down. Patrolman Tannehill was shot in the side in an area where her vest did not protect. Immediately after shooting Patrolman Tannehill, the suspect then fired at Patrolman Roop. Patrolman Roop was struck in the leg and knocked down. The suspect then ran up to Patrolman Roop and shot him in the head. Shortly thereafter, a 3rd officer arrived, heard the gunshots, went to look and see what was going on. Didn't see either officer because from his perspective, they were down by the vehicle, and from that perspective, couldn't see them around the vehicle. Eventually did see them. They were both deceased at that point. They searched the park. They caught the guy. He went to prison, and he hung himself in prison. What this caused the San Diego Police Department to do was go back and reevaluate their training because they had stopped teaching contact and cover. Somebody along the way said, that's old. And 2 officers died. This is the shooting that caused them to reevaluate that, and it kind of rippled across the country. And departments that weren't teaching contact and cover because they'd kind of dropped it went back to it again. So I want you to understand that law enforcement has learned the hard way that while it's old, it works. And as a result, they're still teaching it. And now when you see them on television and positioned this way, now you know why. Go ahead and hit it again for me. Keep your eyes and ears open. How many people are involved? If there's more than one person involved, we're going to work on that here in a couple minutes. You're going to have to deal with them differently. Where is your backup? Are they with you? Is anything weird or hinky, or is a spirit screaming at you? Stay away from that. And I don't know if I spelled hinky right, but I probably did. Okay. Are weapons present? What are you looking for? You're scanning pants pockets, waistlines, looking for bulges under clothing, watching the suspect's hands. Right? Watching the suspect's eyes. Where are the eyes going? Head up, eyes up, hands up. Use your field interview stance whenever practical. Look, if someone will not comply with a basic, simple thing, sir, could you take your hands out of your pockets? I really appreciate it. I'd feel safer if you did that. Why? I don't have to do that. At that point, it's like, if they won't comply, then that's, what? That's where you get a little space. Sir, honestly, I think that was a basic request. If you can't at least help me out where that's concerned, then you need to leave the campus. You're trespassing. Well, I don't have to go. Then we're going to call law enforcement and have them come have this conversation with you because we're done. And that's where you're calling law enforcement. If you stay engaged with someone who is non-compliant and belligerent over something simple like that, it's not going to get better. It doesn't get better. It's starting to go down the porcelain fixture, and you can hear the flushing sound. So there's no reason for you to stand there. It's just going to get worse. Let people who have authority, that would be the individuals with the badge and the patches and the shiny new police car or beat up old police car, depending on the city you're in, to come and address that individual. Okay. Right now, with law enforcement, with what's going on with schools, churches, and like that, our experience in San Diego is if we call as a church, they don't waste time getting there. Unless they're all busy doing something a lot worse, they don't waste time getting there, because the last thing they want is another active shooter in a public place where there's 1,000 people meeting. I mean, they show up pretty fast. I don't know what your experience is with Orange County SO, but I suspect that it's somewhat similar. So one way or the other, though, isn't it better for that person to be belligerent, destroy property or whatever, and not hurt people? Right, okay, so if you can keep them away from other people or get them to leave, great. If they won't leave, my opinion is I would call law enforcement and back off. But again, that also depends on the context. If that's out on the campus and there's nobody around, that's easy to do. If that's in the middle of the sanctuary during worship service, well, that's not so easy to do. That's where you want to have a staff member, somebody with maybe some law enforcement history or training or whatever, get in there and help you, rather than you dealing with it on your own. So one way or the other, I would say is, how many people are volunteers here? Okay, the majority of you. I would say if that's you, then you want help, whether that's a staff member with some law enforcement history and a little bit more authority because they're staff, or law enforcement. You're going to be dialing whatever that is to dial that person, whether it's calling on the radio or calling the sheriff's department or PD or wherever city you're in. But I would not stay engaged with somebody who's immediately non-compliant and belligerent. All right, the other thing I saw, which was really interesting, was people struggling with the distances. You're in a very confined space. I gave you some distances, didn't I? I said, you really kind of don't want to be closer than this. And your cover guy really needs to be farther than that. Somebody tell me where that might not be possible. In here, for one thing. All right. Where else might that not be possible? Sanctuary, okay. You got a service going on. There's 3,000 people in the room or whatever. Or if you're in a smaller service, you got a smaller room.
When service lets out in the interim.
People are fellowshipping.
When the foyer is full.
Yeah, and it's packed, isn't it? Yeah, and there's people all over the place. And what are they doing? They're fellowshipping and they're enjoying one another's company, talking about what they're going to do tomorrow, or different service teams are talking, maybe getting together to talk about different things they're going to do in serving the church or whatever. You got a bunch of people. It's not possible necessarily to have that much space. So there's going to be times when you don't have that much space, and that's when you really need to be extra vigilant, because as the space compresses, so does the time compresses. You don't have as much reaction time when the space compresses. You also have another issue, and that is there's a lot of people standing around who can get hurt. And this gentleman brought up something that was very key. I mentioned earlier that with a firearm, you're responsible for everything from the point that the bullet leaves the muzzle until it stops, and any damage it does in the middle. And I said, well, if the bad guy's there, there's an old saying, watch your target and what's beyond it. Well, that's all fine and dandy. Watch your target and what's in front of it, too, because people will walk in the middle. Well, you can be having a conversation and people will just walk in the middle because they're oblivious. Now you're trying to talk to this person who's hinky, for lack of a better term, and you're concerned they might be dangerous, and you're having this conversation and you're far enough away that you're safe, but now because there's so many people around, people are walking in the middle, and your cover officer isn't able to stop them all. You may want to be a little closer to prevent that. Yeah.
Is it wise to move that conversation away?
You bet. Okay. And that is a tactic I use a lot because of my age. I can say, I'm having a little hard, this is a hard environment for me to hear and I want to hear what you have to say. I want to be able to listen to you, and I'm having trouble hearing you. Can we step outside? And a lot of times, even when that person is angry, loony, whatever, high, do they want to be listened to? Everybody wants to be listened to, don't they? Why do you think I do this for a living? Nobody will listen to me unless they pay me, and I come here and you guys are forced to. No. Everybody wants to be listened to, so that is an excellent tactic to get them to step out of that environment. Does it always work? No, there's no perfect answer. But until they're belligerent, and sometimes even when they are, that will help de-escalate a little bit and take you outside where you can have that conversation in a relatively safe environment for everyone else, and where it gives you more space. An example of that was a young man we had who had threatened one of our staff members. And he was teaching a class, and this kid had really threatened him. And when he showed up to church, he was angry, and he was known to have a weapon in his car on a regular basis, not legally. And so I was able to talk him into coming out and talk to me because he knows me, and I've always been willing to listen to him. And I think for some idiotic reason I can't figure out, he has some respect for me personally, so he came out to talk with me. And we got him outside, and I talked with him for a while. Ron saw me talking to him. I didn't have a cover officer, so what did Ron immediately become? Cover. And what was Ron watching? The clip knife that he could see right here. So he positioned himself in such a way to move forward and snatch that or grab that arm or grab him in case he reached for that. And then he just remained quiet. Because I listened for quite a while. I just let him go, and I listened. And when he slowed down, I asked him a question. Draw him out, get more out of him. And finally I said, you know what? I'll call him Jim. That's not his name. You know what, Jim? You're just really upset today, and I get it. Sometimes I get upset too. Maybe today's just not a great day for you to be at church. Maybe it's a great day to have some quiet time with the Lord and just go pray and come back another day. And, we can pray now if you like. I can pray with you. I can pray for you. My wife and I will pray for you. What do you think? And he was, he left. He got in his car. He was still angry. He drove out of the parking lot. He turned around. He came back. And he stopped, and I thought, I'm going to end up having to shoot this kid because he's got a gun in his car, and I can't let him. And that's the first thing that went through my head. I started getting a little bit behind cover where I knew I could step there. So did Ron. He pulled up and he said, Mr. Persinger, I just want to tell you, thank you very much for listening to me. I really appreciate it. I said, you're welcome. Anytime, man. You got my phone number. If you need to talk, give me a call. I will. I'm going to go pray. And off he went. And oftentimes that's what happens if you can just listen to them and let them talk. And you can do so safely. Any other comments on what you just learned? Any other suggestions or comments? No, you can ask them. Sure. And it might just be a cell phone, but the problem with it is, here's what happens sometimes. Sure, yes, you can ask them. Be prepared for the response you're going to get. Because the response is not always negative, but it can be frightening. Do you have any weapons on you? No, I don't have any weapons. Oh, I can see that you got a bulge there. Oh, that's just my... And then what are you doing? Jumping out of your skin because, and he comes out with his phone or he's 85 years old and he's still got a pager. Nobody has a pager anymore, except this one guy. He's busting out his pager. He's busting out. So they'll reach for it. So be aware of that. You can do it, but I would do it I would use that depending on what the circumstances are. If the behavior is such and the demeanor is such that you are concerned that they are going to be belligerent or difficult or whatever, and you see bulges, if they're over there, I'd be over here and getting a staff member or somebody with more experience to help me. I wouldn't go over there and engage that on my own. Okay, I would get people to help me, and staff member, a lot of your staff security members are former law enforcement, so they have tons more training than you do for this stuff and a lot more experience on the street, so they're going to spot hinky stuff probably before you do. Any other questions? All right, now, if you have more than one person that you're going to go talk to, you got 3, you got 4, are you going to go over there with just 2 guys to talk to these 4 people? No, not if you think there's anything weird with them at all. No. Are you going to go talk to them, and have them scattered all over the place? No. If I have these 3 guys, each 3 guys, and I want to just chat with them, and we're going to go over there, we're going to talk with them, I want to keep them where I can see them all, right? Now, this is really, really easy. We're talking. Sir, would you take your hands out of your pockets? And he's very nice. He says, oh, yeah, sure. I said, I appreciate it. It just makes me feel a lot more comfortable. I'd appreciate it if you keep more I could see him, too. That'd be great. It's just, and I'm chatting with him, and I'm having this kind of a conversation. My hands are up. I've got this position. I got a cover officer over here. And this guy starts to go over there just because he's wandering. Go ahead. So start wandering. Sir, would you do me a favor? Would you stay over here? I'd really appreciate it if you could do that. And if he complies, he goes back over there. He says, oh, yeah, sure, I'm sorry. Because he's just, people do that. Right? And if he just goes back over there, which 99.9% of the time you're dealing with law-abiding, honest people who are just, whatever, right? And he'll do that for you. If he moves, what's your cover officer doing? Go ahead and move again. Watch your cover officer. He's going to go over there, not to intercept the guy, but to make sure he's keeping a view. And notice what I did. I moved too because I want to get space, and I also want to make sure I keep them in my field of view. Now, if he won't comply, am I sticking around? Not on your life. No, not unless I've got enough people and I've got a staff member or I've got law enforcement or somebody there that really knows knows how to deal with these people or what they're going to do. Now, if they won't comply, again, if they won't comply with simple, basic requests, do you really want them on the campus? No, probably not. Probably not. That might be an invitation for them to go. Okay, and again, that's part of your policies and procedures. I don't know what they are because I specifically asked not to know because I think your policies and procedures need to be proprietary and they stay at the church without sharing them with trainers. But dealing with one person is easy because it's right there. Dealing with 5 people is a whole different animal because they tend to, wander around. So you have to make sure that you're not just requesting somebody move, you're actually repositioning yourself. And if you're the cover officer, as your contact officer repositions, what should you be doing? Repositioning. Okay, you don't want to be bunched up. I'm repositioning over here, and he's standing over here with me. That's not helping. See what I'm saying? So it's going to depend on the circumstances. How much space do you have? You got a lot? Or you got a little? How many people are around? You got nobody? Or you're in the sanctuary at the time during service, or you're outside when it's crowded after service? Or are you dealing with one subject or 5 subjects? Are they compliant? Are they not compliant? This is all stuff that you kind of have to work on and practice as you go. Yeah, you don't want to be like this guy. I don't want to practice. I want to skip ahead to the part where I'm awesome. Does that work? No.
I do hope this was helpful for you. There will be more videos coming soon. Some of them will be on firearms training. Everybody wants to learn that because that's the sexy, cool part. But honestly, some of the best lessons I can teach is how not to get in a gunfight in the first place. Remember, the fight you can always win is the one you didn't get in. So that's what we're trying to do here is avoid those rather than learning specifically how to deal with them if you're in them. Well, we'll talk about that too. But first and foremost, let's try to avoid the conflicts in the first place. Have a great week. Thank you so very much for subscribing to this channel. And I hope and pray that wherever you go, you don't have to face all this stuff and that you will be safe.